Some time ago, I recorded a video on my infos function. Well, it used to be a function, and then I refactored it to be a class instead. But in the way it worked, nothing really changed, so I decided not to make an update video, and now I refactored it to be even more different. So, that video that I'm talking about should be at least unlisted at this point. But if you want to watch it still, you can. I will leave a link to it in the description. So, what is infos? Let me give you a bit of a backstory. I think that's a word. So, I hate Msgbox. Let's just see how it looks. Very badly. It looks ugly. It's white and it's small, it's annoying, it holds the thread for no reason, and there's not much I can do with it. And I have to press enter or something to close it. There's no like time, well, I guess there is a timeout option, but it's not very precise. So I hated Msgbox always, so I tried to figure out other ways of showing information, essentially. There are tooltips, basically things around your mouse, which is like alright, but it's too small and too ugly still. You can also use tray tips that appear here, but they're way too annoying, I guess. And I think that's it on the ways you can show information by default in AutoHotkey. So I decided to create my own class to do that same thing. So let's run this script that you're looking at and use the hotkeys. So here we go. Each one of those is a GUI that shows us the text that we pass into it. So let's fill all of them until the end. So now there is no place for another info. And guess what happens? Well, nothing. If you try to get more infos that you can fit, nothing will happen. They just won't get created, which is, I think, better than the previous way it worked, where it would just override over itself, in which case it doesn't really make sense. Okay, but what if we free some space first? First of all, if you have at least one info, then escape will delete the oldest info. So I just press escape a couple of times and I have more space, and now I can press the same hotkey to create more infos. Alright, great. But what if I don't want to delete the oldest, but instead some specific one? Well, I can just click on them with my mouse to delete them. And guess what? When I press the hotkey, it once again fills in the places that are available. Great. But what if I'm a Vim user, and I am, maybe you too as well, and you don't want to use your mouse? Well, you don't have to. Actually, I just implemented hotkeys on your keyboard to delete a specific info. So Windows plus numbers, essentially. Windows 2, Windows 4, Windows 8. And it actually goes up to the equal sign. So 9, 0, dash, equals. Great. Now I have a bunch of infos that I don't need anymore, and I want to delete them all. I can press Control Escape, and that deletes them all. And at this point, escape works like it's intended to, so that hotkey doesn't exist anymore. Same thing about Windows. So yeah, Windows 4, yeah, does what you would expect it does. And Control Escape also has its default function. So it's not like these hotkeys override themselves forever. No, only while an info exists. So, boom. Quite great, and I love this, absolutely, because there are a couple of things that I use that I want to give me information. Like I have a calculator, like 1 plus 3, and I get that info right there. I don't really need to move my hand, I can just press escape and boom, it's gone. Another thing that I use this often for is notifications. You probably saw this in my previous videos, that when I reload a script, I get an info saying the version that I run this with, or rather, the exe that I run my main script with. Yeah, so notifications are great as well. And there's this second hotkey that we haven't touched yet, so let's do exactly that. Info, well, let's actually look at it. Essentially, it's an abstraction. It's like syntax sugar to create an infos that times out automatically. So when you create an infos, so you pass the text, you can actually pass the time in milliseconds after which it times out. That should be half a second. But specifying the time every single time is just kind of annoying. So I created this function that just creates an instance of infos, but it's automatically 2 seconds. So if you wanted to have some different default, you would change it here. Maybe a second is what you want, maybe even longer. It's up to you. And remember that you can still define, once again, the text. You can still define your time if you want it to be different. So the distinction of this is useful because infos will always mean that it stays forever or until I do some logic, but info always disappears itself. So it's like a useful way for me to differentiate between the two in my code. Especially if I'm refactoring something, I can see what does what very easily. So I recommend you use that as well. I spoiled how I make my descriptions. Yeah, like you probably noticed that mid through the video, after I just shout out some of my video, I pause. That's where I go. I write down the time so I can create an info on YouTube on the top right, so you have like an easy link. That's what I do when I pause, just so you know. Okay. Another thing that used to be an issue in the far past of infos, when it was just bad and I was a worse programmer. I mean, I was in trance at that point, so obviously I was a worse programmer. You can like naturally expect Rust tutorials in the future. I think it just makes so much sense for me to learn Rust. So yeah, cool thing about this is once again we have free spaces and let's create info. So those that auto timeout, and they auto timeout. They don't touch any other info. Sounds obvious, I know, but it used to work in the sense that it just took the one at the top, and overall it was pretty bad. So I very much like how it works now. Yeah. So let's actually go through how this works. I won't touch on every single thing because I've done that kind of thing very, like, multiple times. If you're interested in how I build GUIs with classes, I have 2 playlists on both of those, so you will see what I'm doing here. It's not particularly interesting or different, but I will point out the things that I haven't pointed out in the past. Okay, so first of all, here we have get available space, and then if there is no available space, we stop due to no space. So as I said, if you fill out all of the available space that you have, well then, it won't create another because there's no space for another. We might get to it, we might not. Okay, so the two things that you might want to change is, first of all, the font size. Maybe you want a bigger info or a smaller one, and maybe the distance. Let me show you what it looks like with 2. See, it becomes kind of closer, and maybe you like that more. I'm not sure if I do personally, but I can very much see wanting that. And let's look at 4, and now they just have unnecessary spaces between them. And yeah, so let's reload this again. Since I use screen DPI, it's a setting that I already used in one of my recent projects in StateBulbs. So screen DPI is this setting essentially. So for me, it's going to be 125%. For you, it's maybe 100 or maybe more. So by using this, my infos and your infos should look the same. I'm pretty sure. Or at least I hope. And in case they don't change this or anything here. All of that is private, or at least, like, you shouldn't set it. Change the distance and font size, or both of them, to reflect what you actually want. Okay, here we have the GUI width, essentially. Oh, that actually should be GUI height, but it's whatever. Maximum infos is a number of infos you can have on your screen. So for me, it should be, how many? 14, I guess. So you can use this field to figure out how many you can even have, maybe in logic as well. Then spots is a static array of all the info objects that currently exist. So let's create another hotkey, I guess, that infos spots and spot number 3, we do what? We destroy it, I guess. Destroy. Yeah, so this should work. So this hotkey will destroy the third info. So Shift-Alt-B, and here we go. It did what I expected it to. You don't really need it for yourself, like in terms of hotkeys, because there are already Windows plus numbers there. But why this actually is useful is like you can use this in logic, in code. You can refer to the GUI object of some index, of some place. So you reach that through spots. And max numbered hotkeys is the amount of specific numbered hotkeys that you have. For me, it's currently 12, so starting from 1 and ending at equals. But you can actually implement your own and add more. So maybe you fit, like, sure, 24 on your screen by making the font size smaller, and you want more specific hotkeys. For example, you go on later to Windows Q, Windows W, Windows E, and so on. You can actually do that. First of all, you would increment the number to what you actually need, and then you would go here to the method getKeyFromIndex. So if the index is smaller than 10, so it's 1 through 9, we'll just return that number. But if it's bigger, then we return the name of the key that we need. And you would specify it here, like case 13 is return Q. But I don't particularly want that, so I don't have it. I wouldn't want to override my Windows hotkeys that much. And the place where it's used to, oh god, I didn't recognize just how badly this looks. Like, there's so much here, but it does still make sense as single responsibility principle, all that, because that's what it does. Well, yeah, essentially, this is the line where it actually uses that key as the hotkey to destroy that info. Okay. And to go back to how this actually works overall. So, where is it? Oh yeah, spots. At first, the first time you encounter info, or rather HK goes through this class and it's like, oh, okay, it generates an array. Its size is the same as the maximum info, so you can push on your screen at once. And it creates that array which starts out fully false. So for me, it's an array of 14 values, and they all start out at false. We use this array to keep track of the spaces that are available and which are not. So at first, everything is false, meaning every space is not occupied and we can use it easily. So when we go to create GUI, not actually, yeah, we get to get available space, and it actually does use this spots array. It keeps checking until it finds a false place, meaning a place that is not occupied, as we can see here. So if it's false, then we can take that up, and we pass this as the value of that spot, so we can access the GUI object, which is just mwah. Well, actually, we don't access the GUI object. To access the GUI object, we would this dots ginfo, maybe in some other place, right? So, obj, we get infos, and then spots number 3. So here we don't get the GUI object, we get the instance of the class of infos. And if you wanted to get the GUI object, you would do object.ginfo, and see, it even suggests that. So that's how you actually do it, but you generally won't need to. Well, no, you might, but to destroy it, what you would do is just use destroy. You could use something like WinClose, but it's not recommended because destroy is more built-in, and it's going to be faster, like noticeably so. Okay, so once we find an available place, we take that place up, and that is exactly why it doesn't create the info on the same place, because it's occupied. And that is why it occupies the available place rather than this one, for example, because every time we create a new info, it goes through every available place to see if it's available or not. And if it is, then it appears there. So I very much love this. Yeah. There's also replace text, which I used to use someplace. So say we create an infos with some text. Let's just sleep for like 2 seconds, and then, oh right, we actually need the object. Object boop, and then we can object replace text other text. So let's run this. We get some text, wait 2 seconds, other text. If you try to close this and then, well, okay, essentially it replaces the text of this place specifically. So you don't want the info to move. You don't want to first destroy this and then maybe the next info appears here. No, you want it to be in this place specifically. And you would use replace text to do exactly that. So interesting that was still there. That's not supposed to happen. Well, to be fair, I haven't tested this after my refactoring, so I'm not sure if it works correctly. I might figure that out later or not. I don't think I use it anymore. Also, we have destroy all, so let's create our old Shift-Alt-B hotkey to infos destroy all. Create a bunch of different ones, Shift-Alt-B, and it destroys them all. So once again, you can use that in logic. And I think that's pretty much it. Sure, there's a lot more code to explain, it's just that I've done that before. This thing, though, I haven't. Let's go to GUI, which is a dependency for info, as you can see. As you can see at the top of the script, it requires extensions GUI. The three things that we need is dark mode, which makes it dark mode, make font nicer, which, guess what? It makes the font nicer. Well, at least for me, I love Consoles and I love this color, especially with that black color. Looks very good, so I set it here. It's just so I don't have to be this explicit in the code here, because I use this pretty much in every single one of my GUIs. And then one pretty cool one, never focus window. We can use this to make sure that that window of an info never becomes active, because that's useless. So those are important for this to look and work correctly. Keep that in mind. Also, there's no tool window, which is confusing considering that it has a plus. Like, you would imagine that plus tool window means, oh, let me get a tool window. But no, it's the opposite. It removes them from here. There's no caption, obviously, and they always on top. So I don't think there's anything else to explain. Yeah. Let me share something, though. I was really scared of touching this class and refactoring to be this, because it used to have a map of like the y coordinate. So like this y coordinate, say it's 60, for example, then 90, then 120, and that was mapped to the info object. And it was all pretty annoyingly coded in a difficult to wrap your head around way and difficult to use. So back then I couldn't have hotkeys that delete a specific info like here or here, and I'm not sure if I could have a hotkey that deletes them all, but now I can because it's an array. So I was really scared of touching that horrible monstrosity. But you know what helped me? No, not HelloFresh, no, not Raid Shadow Legends, I wish. What helped me are focus sections. So quite a brilliant idea, which I thought would limit me, but ended up helping me immensely. So right now, since yesterday, I code or work or whatever else for 20 minutes, and then I am guaranteeing that I'm resting for 5 minutes. So I make sure that I get that rest in, even if I feel like I don't need it. So in that 5 minutes, I have to not think about whatever I was just coding. So completely turn my mind off, maybe focus on the music that I was listening to, like dance, all that stuff, walk around, stretch, so on. But those 5 minutes are specifically for rest. Remove your work thoughts on them. And then when you come back to work for another 20 minutes, and it's like a cycle, you're far more focused. So one thing I used to have before is that I have a lot of desire and energy to code something, but even though I had that, I ended up at one point having a very foggy mind where it was difficult to understand stuff. I was just like looking at code and be like, what is this? And just completely not understand something that I am supposed to understand. Well, it turns out that even if I have energy and interest in whatever I'm doing, my focus is not something that is permanent. It's something that will fade away after time. So instead of trying to go against that natural reaction, I actually help it. I recognize that I do need rest for my focus to return, not for me to, oh my god, I am so tired and I don't have the energy. No, I do. It's just my focus is tired, and I'm giving that a rest, a very important one. So that means that those 20 minutes, I am very much focused. I'm not even distracted by Discord or something of that nature anymore, which is incredible. And then in those 5 minutes, I am guaranteeing that I'm resting. And it's exactly because I started using that I was able to refactor this in a pretty good way. Like, it's much better than I thought I could make it. And some other things that I recently did as well. So one thing I could recommend you use for that is just Windows Clock. It has focus sections built in. You can like set them up how you want them. So I have them for 20 minutes and then 5, but I also just remade my timer. So let's say like 20 minutes and timer started. In 20 minutes, it will ring. I'm probably not going to make a video on the timer though, because it's not necessarily amazing or something I'm very proud of. It's just useful for me, and it works in a kind of complicated fashion, yes. But if you're interested in my timer as well, please leave a comment saying that, because I wouldn't know otherwise. So, if you enjoyed this video, press a like, type some comment, maybe have a question or a suggestion. Definitely subscribe so you don't miss my content, but most importantly, stay fresh, cheese bags, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!